From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
Will cotton be king in the South this year?
USDA predicted acres as 130,000. I believe we're going to be slightly lower than that.
What farmers in Louisiana are facing as they wrap up planting. We remember a farmer who was so much more than a meme. As the U.S. looks to grow meat exports, officials zero in on one continent.
So the spending power that's going to come in the next 5 to 10 years will be amazing.
Where they see potential for massive growth right now on AgDay. Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. The U.S. is looking to grow exports and it's zeroing in on one continent right now, Africa. And the U.S. Meat Export Federation is looking to grow sales of U.S. red meat there. Take a look at this map from USDA's Economic Research Service. Currently, the U.S. sends just over $2 billion in ag exports to Egypt and less than $1 billion in ag products to Nigeria. AgDay's Michelle Rook joins us. And Michelle, why is the USMEF targeting this area of the globe?
Clinton, for many years, the focus of U.S. meat export growth was on China and countries in Southeast Asia. But now there are areas around the globe where their economies are growing at an equally fast pace, including Africa. And that's why USMEF has turned their attention to that area, despite some of the headwinds that they face in developing their supply chain. Africa represents a huge potential market for U.S. meat exports with their rapidly growing population.
Technology alone is going to expedite their development. And you've got 1.4 billion people in the continent of Africa and probably the youngest demographic in the world. So the spending power that's going to come in the next 5 to 10 years will be amazing.
Historically, the continent has struggled to feed its people and is protein deficient.
So from a nutrition point of view, we need to get valuable nutrition from protein sources, and we don't produce enough on the continent. So things like beef variety meats, for example, we have triple-digit growth year on year, admittedly of a smaller base last year, and we're still at the very thin edge of the wedge as we build into some more countries, but certainly African markets, balancing the carcass, variety meats, we need those all day. Beef livers, beef kidneys, hearts, head meat, all of those things we use in processing.
But there is also potential in muscle cuts in some regions. The hurdle is developing the supply and retail chain with big differences in phytosanitary and trade requirements from country to country.
Those supply channels on the internal legs of the continent are fairly well established. But what we need to do is make sure we're approaching the right countries with the right kind of agenda. Angola, Portuguese speaking, make sure we're equipped for that, make sure we have understandings of some of the requirements. So each of these countries have slightly different kind of veterinary regulations, they need different certificates.
Another challenge is Africa's complex culture with thousands of different languages and tribes, so product needs to be matched to each market. I'm Michelle Rook reporting for AgDay.
All right, thanks, Michelle. Also on the meat front, it's reported the U.S. is working on a bird flu vaccination scenario, one that would focus on turkeys. Veterinarians would zero in on a few states with the largest number of turkey farms. However, no decision to vaccinate has been made just yet. The issue was discussed at a general session of the World Organization for Animal Health in Paris. The conference focused on highly pathogenic avian influenza, but the Deputy Administrator of Veterinary Services at USDA said she sees no positive impact on vaccinating chickens right now because they have a short lifespan. Now, the USDA reported in November that more than 70% of commercial poultry farms impacted by the latest outbreak were turkey farms. It looks like the heat is on in the northern plains while cooler temperatures are moving into the Midwest. Meteorologist Matt Engelbrecht joins us with an update.
Yeah, looking ahead into Memorial Day weekend, starting off later on this afternoon. It's going to be all about the heat and a ridge of high pressure, which is going to bring those above average temperatures through portions of the plains, including the Dakotas, where Bismarck could be hitting 86 degrees. Now, a weak cold front trying to make its way through parts of the Midwest back up here to the northeast. So for this afternoon, temperatures only topping out in the 60s. and also in the possibly the lower 70s if we can get there, especially into North Carolina, a little bit in Virginia, as well as back over into the Midwest. Now, we're taking a look at what we have. They're coming up in just a little bit. We got more average high, above average high temperatures, but also a beautiful shot here as well. This is coming out of Ohio. A terrific look at soybean field. Now that's making some great progress. Zach sent this one in of Ohio, saying he planted these beans on April 12th and that they were ready for a big week. I'll have more on your forecast coming up.
One Ukrainian port has stopped operations, the government claiming Russia is not allowing ships to enter it. It is the port of Pivdeny. It is near Odessa on the Black Sea. A Ukrainian official says the port is being cut out of the Black Sea grain deal right now. As we reported last week, Russia and Ukraine agreed to extend that deal for 2 months. The United Nations, which helped broker the original agreement last summer, and this latest extension expressed concern about the port being shut off. Now, reports are it has not received any ships since the beginning of the month.
And so if you look at the pace of loadings and shipments, it's way down in May and it's going to be way down in June. And with this naval blockade, they make ship insurers nervous. I mean, it's the same story we've been having all year.
Reuters says the closed port is storing about 1.5 million tons of food items for future exports to 10 countries. An update on the story we've been following. A federal judge has dismissed a lawsuit filed by 4 farmers of color. The farmers had argued the government broke its promise when it failed to pay off the debts of a group of black farmers. Now, you'll remember USDA dropped a pandemic-era program that would have paid off 120% of the debt of farmers considered socially disadvantaged. That's after Congress passed the Inflation Reduction Act and amended the program. Now, the judge in this case saying there wasn't an expressed or implied in fact contractual agreement between the plaintiffs and USDA. Now, among those filing suit, John Boyd Jr., the president of the National Black Farmers Association, he says he isn't giving up the fight. The Oregon ag community is mourning the loss of 7 farm workers killed in a crash while on their way home from work. The workers were all traveling in a van when a semi-truck ran off Interstate 5 last week and slammed into it. It was parked on a roadside near Albany. That's an ag area of the Willamette Valley. Now, the van was carrying 11 people at the time. Oregon State Police said all of the workers were of Mexican nationality. The driver of this semi was arrested Friday on suspicion of manslaughter, DUI, and other charges. The crash is one of the deadliest in Oregon in recent years. And the man behind one of the most famous memes in ag history has passed away. Ohio farmer David Brant was a nationally known proponent of no-till farming. Now, he traveled the country talking about sustainable agriculture and soil health, but it was his meme on social media that made him famous, saying, "It ain't much, but it's honest work." Relatives say Brant enjoyed the meme, but he didn't know what a meme was until he learned he was one. Brant passed away following injuries suffered in a car crash in Illinois. He was 76 years old. Now, just before his death, Brant was working on an article with 3 other soil health experts in response to the deadly dust storms on I-55 several weeks ago. You can look for that paper on agweb.com. Grain markets continue a topsy-turvy week of trade. We'll have those details coming up next. And later, 2022 cotton prices help to entice more acreage. This year, it's a different story. We're off to Louisiana in the country. And we have another winner to announce in the Zoetis Freedom Recognition Sweepstakes by Farm Journal. Congratulations to Michael Potchke. You've just won a special edition golf bag. And time is running out on this sweepstakes. Get your phone out and scan the QR code on your screen right now. You can register to win one of those golf bags or the grand prize, an American flag wall display. Up on Monday, down on Tuesday, and mixed again at midweek. That's the story so far this week with soybeans. Michelle Rook is back to discuss what's causing all of this fluctuation with Darren Fry of Water Street Solutions.
Grains ended mixed on Wednesday. Darren Fry, Water Street Solutions, joining us with analysis. And Darren, let's talk about the corn market. We've been putting in weather premium. How much weather premium does the market need?
Well, I think we had some weather premium ahead of this rally, and so I'm not looking for a whole lot more. I think December corn has good resistance between 521 and 531 area, looking for a top sometime here midweek. Same thing on the July, only that number would be a little higher, 585 to 595, I think is where resistance is. And I think tomorrow will be important. We have a few more days of weather model runs here ahead of the weekend, a 3-day weekend, and we'll see what those look like. But they are starting to turn maybe a little bit wetter in the far out, like 14, 15 days out. And we'll see if that continues over the next 4 or 5 model runs.
So when does weather become critical in terms of maybe curbing our yield on corn?
Well, I think it's too early, other than a few places that are really dry. You have a spot in eastern Nebraska, you have a little spot in Illinois through central Indiana that just haven't received the rainfall. And you can see that if you look at some of the weather maps, as well as look at what the soil moisture is like. And so those areas are most vulnerable, but you probably got less than 4 or 5 million acres like that in the country. A lot of people got the crop in, good stands, things are looking good. They have enough moisture to get into the middle of June. I think it'll be critical that we see a weather pattern change as we enter that second and third week of June. If we don't see that, then everything has upside to it as we move into the end of the month here in June.
Soybeans tried to follow corn during this session yesterday, and then we saw kind of a mixed close. Did we just run up into some chart resistance?
Yeah, we did. And you take a look at Tuesday's action, we had reversals, whether it was a 3 inside down or a bearish engulfing bar. We had reversals in soybeans, bean meal, and oil to the downside. We challenged the upper range of yesterday's trade, but then on Tuesday, but then we just fell short and we headed south again. So the beans don't seem to care about the weather issue at all. They're kind of trading on their own island, kind of like wheat. Wheat isn't getting concerned about what corn's concerned about, and wheat's headed south as well.
So has wheat taken out too much risk premium?
I don't know. I fundamentally, I just think the wheat crop, Kansas City wheat crop, is in a lot of trouble. I think these rains are going to help in some ways. Other ways are going to complicate things out there, bringing on a lot of weed pressure. I don't know if farmers west of Wichita are going to spray fungicide on a 10, 15 bushel wheat crop. So, I just think the rain is complicating things. I think it's going to help them for their summer crops, which is a positive, and that's good. But, I don't know. Wheat looks straight down on the chart. I think we got more downside to go. I think some of that is importing some wheat, some of it's blending it out. Right. I just don't know if we're going to have enough to get wheat to score a bottom here before we get to July.
Thanks so much for joining us. It's Darren Fry, Water Street Solutions, and we'll have more AgDay coming up.
For marketing strategy specific to your operation, contact Water Street Solutions at 866-249-2528 or online at www.waterstreet.org.
AgDay is brought to you by Lamar's Toy Store, the largest and most diversified farm toy store in the U.S. They have new and old and do restorations and customizations too. You need to see it to believe it. Visit lamarstoystore.com or call us at 712-546-4305.
I'll start off looking at what we were looking at earlier, the temperatures across the United States, May 29th through June 2nd. As we flip that calendar into June, the heat sticks around. Now, we're not talking just a few notches off of the normal. This is going to go above normal temps in a very big way, well above average during this time period, as we're going to set up a blocking pattern. These kind of instances, we just keep warming up the same air mass day after day after day. It's going to be a dry one as well. If we want to find some cooler than average temperatures, we're looking into the southeast, where we have a coastal low pressure system bringing some cloud cover, some light rain to those locations, and then also back down into the southwest. Now that's the temperature. We flip this over to the precipitation outlook, and where we're seeing those below average or slightly below average temperatures, also where we could be seeing some rainfall. But we kind of go back to the legend, and we're only going to be into the light green rather than the dark green, which would be a substantial amount of rainfall. It does start to show up in Nevada and California. On the other side, we're going to see drier than average conditions, drier than normal, back into the Midwest under the same pattern. So dry and hot for a good portion of the United States as we get set for June. Now the wind gust forecast kind of shows that weak boundary we were talking about just a little bit ago in the Midwest. Things stay a little breezy, if not a little windy. We also start to kick up the winds back out here into the plains as well. The Dakotas pushing about 30 to 35 miles per hour. As we get into Friday, a little bit quieter forecast. Winds won't be as strong, but they will start to show up once again in the same area because of that very quiet pattern. Again, that's a look at the wind gust forecast. Eureka, Nevada, partly cloudy, high around 71 degrees, low of 40 degrees. You got to go to Oxford, a little sunny, high around 64 degrees, low of 41. And then Bozeman, Montana, partly sunny, high around 65 degrees.
Happening right now, drought concerns in key areas are continuing to push cattle numbers in the U.S. lower than what's needed to meet the demands of the market. Now, that's the assessment of Darrell Peel of Oklahoma State. He says while drought has lessened in much of the country, important beef cattle regions in the central and southern plains are still dealing with drought, and that is continuing to impact levels. This as we head into the official start of summer grilling season.
If you take the rate of female liquidation that we saw through 22, even though we're seeing cow slaughter decline, the percentage of heifers in the fed slaughter mix is still incredibly high. So we're still going to be liquidating in 2023. The point that I would make here is because of the weather influences, particularly across the northern feeding states, this market has performed as if it is a sprint, and this market is a marathon. We haven't got to our tightest numbers yet, so this market will, by all rights, should continue 23, 24, and even into 25.
OSU's Peel adds that if drought conditions continue to improve, next year will probably be the low point of the herd. An atypical case of bovine spongiform encephalopathy was found in one cow in South Carolina. USDA says it was found in a 5-year-old or older beef cow at a slaughter plant there. They say the radio frequency identification tag on that animal was associated with a herd in Tennessee. Now, officials add the animal never entered slaughter channels and at no time presented a risk to the food supply or human health. They also don't expect any trade impacts as a result. Now, this represents the nation's 7th detection of BSE. 6 of them have been atypical cases. Corn and soybeans aren't the only crops going in the ground right now. We'll travel to Louisiana to see how cotton planting is going in the South, in the country.
In the Country on Ag Day is brought to you by Pivot Bio. What if you had the nitrogen you need already on seed? Pivot Bio is the first company to apply nitrogen on seed. The nitrogen you need, now on seed, from Pivot Bio. Learn more at pivotbio.com.
Checking on cotton planting right now, USDA reports it's falling a bit behind. In the latest crop progress report, it says 45% of the crop is now in the ground. That's compared to the 5-year average of 50%. And in Louisiana, things are actually running ahead of schedule with 83% of the crop now planted. That's 7% ahead of average. And while last year brought a glimmer of hope to cotton farmers as both prices and acreage soared across the Mid-South, LSU Ag Center reporter Craig Gautreaux reports that optimism has faded a bit.
Last year, fluffy white bolls of cotton were much more prevalent across Louisiana because farmers planted one of the largest crops in a decade, bolstered by a run-up in price. This year, cotton prices have fallen by a third, leading farmers to plant other crops.
When you push a crop at over $800 an acre on your direct expenses, you're going to need to see a pretty strong market price to give you that signal that you're going to plant cotton.
The market is signaling other crops such as corn and soybeans are a better bet, which is causing cotton acres to shrink.
USDA predicted acres as 130,000. I believe we're going to be slightly lower than that. It's mainly due to the price and some of the challenges growers faced last year with the cotton crop, mainly weather related.
Last year, there were just under 200,000 acres planted in Louisiana. An extremely wet August caused quality issues in the lint and led to price reductions for farmers as they put pickers into the fields. For a few, that caused them to abandon cotton completely.
I've spoken with some growers this year. They've gotten out of the cotton business. They've sold their cotton equipment. Some growers are moving more to custom harvesting.
Government policy has also played a role in the demise of cotton in the South.
Corn acres replaced cotton, not only in Louisiana, but all in the Delta and all in the Mid-South. A lot of that was driven by demands of the biofuel energy with policy initiatives like the Renewable Fuel Standard.
Right now, the only certainty in the cotton market is cotton is no longer king. With the LSU Ag Center, this is Craig Gautreaux reporting.
All right, thanks, Craig, and that's all the time we have this morning. We're sure glad you tuned in. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day.
Closed captioning on AgDay is brought to you by BASF, helping you do the biggest job on Earth.